The definition of shock rock is the combination of rock music or heavy metal music with highly theatrical live performances emphasizing shock value. Performances may include violent or provocative behavior from the artists, the use of attention-grabbing imagery such as costumes, masks, or face paint, or special effects such as pyrotechnics or fake blood. Shock rock is also known to include elements of horror. Now, when I say shock rock, a few names may come to mind: Kiss, Alice Cooper, Rob Zombie, Insane Clown Posse, Mudvayne, Slipknot, Mushroomhead, or Guar. All creative geniuses in their own rights, but the garden they grew in would be nothing without the soil that helped them grow. A lot of folks want to claim they know who started shock rock, tossing out names left and right that aren't anywhere near the correct answer. And that answer comes in the form of a man with a story as wild as he is, but a story that must be told, as he paved the way for rock and roll history. Screamin Jay Hawkins, with his 1956 smash hit,
I put a spell on you. Because of mine. Because you're mine.
Hello to everyone doing their dark bidding on the internet, and welcome back to Heard It in a Love Song, the show that uncovers the history of a love song we all know and love. My name is Richard Hunt, and today we are covering just an absolute legend, Screamin Jay Hawkins, and his banger, I Put a Spell on You. We start our story in Cleveland, Ohio on July 18th, 1929. That is where and when we meet up with Marie Hawkins, as she welcomed to the world a baby boy, Screamin Jay Hawkins. His mother had 7 other children, each with a different father, and so he grew up in foster homes, being quoted as saying, "My mama said that out of all the men, my father was the hardest, the meanest, and the rottenest. She would look at me and say, 'You're no good. You're going to be just like your father.' And I said, 'I'm going to make something of myself.'" At age 1.5, Jay was fostered with a tribe of Blackfoot Native Americans, rich ones, with homes in the city, who, quote, "raised me real good and taught me the value of $1, he would tell The Independent in 1999. However, Steve Bergsman, author of the definitive Hawkins biography, I Put a Spell on You, The Bizarre Life of Screamin Jay Hawkins, reveals that he was one of 4 children. Destitute, his mother Marie Hawkins placed him in a welfare home soon after he was born. And although Hawkins maintained that he was taken in by a tribe of wealthy Blackfoot Native Americans, he was actually fostered by Edith Randolph, a woman who Hawkins' oldest daughter, Sookie, remembered as possibly being Native American. Within a few years, he started teaching himself how to play piano. As a kid, he idolized opera legend Enrico Caruso and the great actor-singer Paul Robeson. Jay said, "Something I wanted to do but never did is sing opera, and that goes back to my respect for Paul Robeson and Mario Lanza. But when I got into the music business, opera didn't get into the charts. They were just putting out rhythm and blues." Other influences included the aforementioned Mario Lanza, Lionel Hampton, Dizzy Gillespie, Charles Brown, Amos Milburn, Wynonie Harris, Nellie Litcher, Roy Brown, Jimmy Witherspoon, Eddie Cleanhead Vinson, Roy Milton, Elmore James, Lightnin' Hopkins, H-Bomb Ferguson, and Cab Calloway. He got into the army with forged papers and fought in World War II, though he would have been no more than 14 or 15. In the documentary I Put a Spell on You, Hawkins claimed to have been taken as a prisoner of war while serving in World War II, and he mentions that after liberation, he placed a grenade in the mouth of his chief torturer and pulled the pin. Hawkins began playing music at Cleveland area clubs in 1951, getting his start at Gleason's Bar and the Majestic Hotel. The Majestic's Bar, known in the 1950s as the Rose Room Cocktail Lounge, was especially important to Hawkins' formative years. Located in a predominantly black area referred to as Cleveland's Harlem, the lounge attracted both black and white audiences. Eventually, Jay landed a spot playing piano with Tony Grimes' Scottish kilt-wearing band, the Rocking Highlanders. He delivered a mournful vocal on his first recording, Why Did You Waste My Time?
If you didn't want me, baby, why, oh, why did you waste my time?
The Grimes and Highlanders track, issued on the Gotham label in 1953, credited him as Screamin Jay Hawkins. As his solo career got underway, the songs got wilder. His macabre streak is evident on the 1954 Jalacey Hawkins single Untimely, Baptize Me in Wine.
Confession for your soul and confession for mine. If wine's gonna kill me, I don't mind dying. Oh!
Another Wine Mom type song followed, called I Found My Way to Wine. After signing with Mercury in early 1955, Jay proved, very much so, that the content that he was going for was ghastly, loud, and superstition-themed. He was using Jay Hawkins professionally at the time, but the Screamin' nickname wasn't far off from sticking. She Put the Whammy on Me was designed to shock.
She put the whammy on me.
Two singles for Mercury's Wing Records division, Even Though,
Even though you made my teardrops fall.
and Talk About Me,
You can talk about me, baby, but you know that you ought to be mine.
were a bit more conventional, and after which Hawkins signed with Epic's OK label and the Halloweenish hijinks resumed. In the fall of 1956, he commenced the nightmarish process of constructing his soon-to-be masterpiece. Producer Arnold Maxson wanted something big for their next song, and Jay had an idea for a ballad called I Put a Spell on You, but more on that later. Sessions proceeded with Leroy Kirkland's orchestra. He recorded for Timely and Wing Records, and joined Fats Domino's road band for a short time. In 1956, he followed up I Put a Spell on You with songs like Feast of the Mau Mau,
To the feast with the beast of the Mau Mau. They make wine from the spine and they build down.
and Alligator Wine.
Spit over your left shoulder, and you got alligator wine.
The DJ and promoter, Alan Freed, got the idea of bringing Hawkins on stage in a coffin for a Cleveland concert, and Jay once said that Freed paid him $5,000 to persuade him to go through with it, although other accounts say the bonus was $300. But either way, it thrilled the crowd, and the coffin became a regular part of the show. The best Screamin Jay anecdote that I found comes from the book Showtime at the Apollo by Ted Fox. Hawkins carried the coffin wherever he went in a zebra-striped hearse. It so spooked the stagehands at the Apollo that they refused to handle it. To keep the lid from locking, Hawkins used to stick a piece of a matchbook in the mechanism. On one occasion at the Apollo, Screamin Jay asked one of the members of the Drifters to stick the matchbook in the lock on his way down to the stage. They never did it, said Hawkins. They waited patiently until I got into the coffin, and then they came off stage, slammed the lid, and the sucker was jammed locked tight. That's when I found out you only got 3.5 minutes of air in that coffin. When I realized I couldn't get out of that coffin, boy, I was so scared. I was crying, I was cussing, and I was praying. I had a white tuxedo on, tails, gloves, hat, cane, spats, and all. Then I started kicking, and that's what saved me, because I knocked it off its display stand, and when it hit the floor and busted open, the audience thought it was part of the act, and I forgot the words. I commenced to punching out every drifter I ran into. I hit about 3 of them, and had my sights on Benny King. They didn't show for the last 2 shows. and it took 7 years before we started talking again. The crowd went nuts, and Jay's fate was sealed in that box for the next 4 decades. Performance enhancements included flashy, tacky outfits, turbans, leopard skin jackets, zebra-striped capes, Zulu warrior gear, bizarre props like shrunken heads, rubber snakes, fuzzy, flexible spiders, and a cackling skull on a stick, and occasionally a fake bone in his nose. The NAACP was not entirely pleased. Jay didn't care as long as he could go to the bank, as he put it. Interestingly, Hawkins was also resentful of his image. He felt like people were more drawn to his stage persona than his music. If it were up to me, I wouldn't be Screamin Jay Hawkins. James Brown did an awful lot of screaming, but he never got called Screamin James Brown. Why can't people take me as a regular singer without making a boogeyman out of me? Screamin Jay grew tired of having to play what he called that weird voodoo black screamin' Vincent Price image, and in the early 1960s he moved to Hawaii, where he bought a bar and tried to settle down. But by the late 1960s he had resumed performing, playing up his boogeyman image even as he protested that he still hoped to sing opera. He loved pop standards, but when it came to interpreting them in his own style, well, case in point, a follow-up single, You Made Me Love You, I Didn't Want To, was played more for laughs.
You made me love you. I didn't want to do it.
An impolite inflection rendition of the classic James V. Minocco Joe McCarthy song, popularized by Al Jolson in 1913,
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
and again by Judy Garland during her late 30s heyday. Jay practiced making sound effects, steam practically came out of his ears, and the wildness continued with David Hill and Bobby Stevenson's Frenzy, its pace consistent with the song's title.
When you kiss me and do it, I'm in a frenzy.
Cole Porter's I Love Paris got the Screamin Jay Hawkins treatment.
I love Paris in the springtime. I love Paris in the fall.
But soon, movie stardom was on the horizon. Jay's appearance in Alan Freed's rock and roll movie, Mr. Rock and Roll, was left on the cutting room floor. He was to sing Alligator Wine, which was a single that marked the end of Jay's association with OK Records in 1958, mere months after the release of his album At Home with Screamin Jay Hawkins. There were singles on many other labels, Grand, Red Top, Enrica, Chancellor, and Roulette, covering several revolting topics. Armpit Number 6,
But you should dig my baby who is stoned from the sticks with her own kind of perfume called Armpit Number 6.
I Hear Voices,
I hear voices.
and a weirdly overhauled I Put a Spell on You on Decca Records in 1967, an entirely different song that briefly used the hook from the original.
I put a spell on you because you're mine.
Baby, please, don't.
Towards the end of the 1960s, he made several recordings for Philip Records, including the album What That Is, featuring Feast of the Mau Mau and the infamous Constipation Blues.
Let it go! Let it go! Let it go! Don't believe I can take much more. Let it go.
Jay finally turned up on the big screen briefly in the 1978 rock flick American Hot Wax.
Musician.
I'm trying to get him in a coffin.
In the coffin? I don't know. If you get him in the coffin, he don't belong to me. We'll call the cemetery workers. But if he's out, I want to see a card.
All right, let's go. I got 4,000 people waiting down there. Let's go. Let's get in there.
Okay.
Harder,
Look at this thing. I mean, how much air you think is in there?
There's all kinds of air. Look at the room you got in here.
I mean, how much air is in there when you close the lid? That's what I want to know.
Soon after, touring kicked into high gear, and it really was not unheard of for there to be 4 performances of I Put a Spell on You in one evening. Soon afterwards, he became a cult movie star, starting with a small part in 1988's Two Moon Junction. Then a deadpan performance as a night clerk at the seedy Memphis Hotel in Jim Jarmusch's Mystery Train.
Well, I don't think you should eat that thing.
Yeah, you're probably right.
You gonna eat it?
No, I ain't gonna eat that thing. Hey, it's my plum.
Which landed him an Independent Spirit Award nomination for Best Supporting Male. He went head-to-head with co-star Steve Buscemi, but they both lost.
You fucking shot me! I don't believe this! You're not even my brother-in-law, now you fucking shot me!
A couple of other oddball parts in the films Dance with the Devil Pew Eatery darted in and out of theaters in the 90s.
Deep in love! I got it bad!
In 2000, Hawkins appeared to be in good health, still lean and robust. The 70-year-old singer had the appearance of a man 20 years younger. In previous decades, Hawkins lamented about being pigeonholed as a black Vincent Price, having once told writer Gary Hershey, "I wish I could be who I was before I was me." But as he entered his 7th decade, he made peace with being rock's original wild man. "I find I can make people react more quickly if I walk on with a skull and snakes," he told the Independent's Philip Sweeney. "I see smiles on their faces and they're clapping, and they're saying, 'Here comes that crazy man,' and I know it's going to be alright." Hawkins married 6 times, and he was stabbed by Shoutin' Pat Newburn out of jealousy when he wedded Virginia Sabellona, and it's been rumored that he has fathered around 75 children. His friend and biographer Maral Najolian even set up a website after Hawkins' death to trace all of them. He found 33, and some of them even met during a reunion in 2001. It's been verified, but a number isn't exact, that he has somewhere between 55 and 75 children. On February 12, 2000, Screamin Jay Hawkins died after emergency surgery from an aneurysm in Neuilly-sur-Seine, France, near Paris. But he requested he not be buried in an all-too-familiar coffin. Cremation was fine, with him saying, "I wrote in my will to cremate me. Fly over the ocean and scatter the dust, so I can be little particles in everybody's eyes. Drive everybody crazy for the rest of their lives." But let's take it back a bit and talk about the song that put a spell on us all.
Not the things you do. Watch out! Watch out! I'm lying!
Producer Arnold Maxson wasn't feeling the ballad approach Jay was intent on implying for I Put a Spell on You. Hawkins had originally intended to record I Put a Spell on You as a refined love song, a blues ballad. He wrote it as a ballad lamenting the loss of his girlfriend that he wanted back, and the original version was a lot slower and much more tame. Hawkins was recording for Grand Records at the time and had a hard time convincing them to release it, although it has since been reissued on Hawkins' The Whammy, 1953 to 1955. A year later, Hawkins recorded the version that became famous for another label and transformed the song into a spooky tale about putting a curse on the girl he wants so he can have her. Legend recounts a drunken in-studio soiree that took place after Arnold sent out for a large order of chicken and barbecued ribs with plenty of whiskey, wine, and beer for the whole band. Everyone got so smashed that Jay couldn't even remember what took place, and when he later heard the track, he didn't even recognize his own voice. He performed the ghoulish version of the track for the first time at a Christmas concert staged by Cleveland DJ Alan Freed in 1956. He got a huge reaction from the song, and Freed invited him to perform it on his TV special. Hawkins developed a bizarre stage show around this, and he would come out in a flaming coffin and wield a skull on a stick that he named Henry. The version with various grunts and groans was banned by most radio stations for its, quote, outrageous cannibalistic style. But despite the restriction, the record still sold over 1 million copies. A bonus fun fact is that the person responsible for the saxophone throughout I Put a Spell on You is Sam Taylor. He also played sax on 2 other well-known songs, Shake, Rattle, and Roll by Big Joe Turner,
Shake, rattle, and roll. Shake, rattle, and roll.
and Shaboom by the Chords.
Life could be a dream, sweetheart, hello, hello again, shaboom, and open we'll meet again.
Even though Screamin Jay Hawkins didn't get the appreciation that he absolutely deserved while he was still alive and well, it's fairly easy to spot how much he influenced other musicians, Alice Cooper, Marilyn Manson,
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Kiss, Tom Waits, Rob Zombie, Led Zeppelin, and Black Sabbath are just some of the rock stars who made their onstage theatrics part of the whole package. And I Put a Spell on You has been covered numerous times by artists such as
I put a spell on you.
Because you're mine.
You better stop the things you do.
I ain't lying.
I just can't stand it, babe. The way you're always running round.
I ain't gonna take none of you for putting me down.
I put a spell on you.
Because you're mine.
Stop the things you do. Hey, what's up? Just can't stand it, baby. The way it always
I put a spell on you. Because you're mine.
I Put a Spell on You was included in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's 500 Songs That Shaped Rock, and at number 299 on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time, beating out Rock Lobster by the B-52s, and landing below Jungle Land by Bruce Springsteen.
Against each other out the street.
I Put a Spell on You comes in at 86 beats per minute. There is something completely otherworldly, not just about the song itself, but the man behind it. I Put a Spell on You really does encapsulate what it feels like to be tossed around and played by someone that you love, but that only loves you when it's convenient. And you can hear the heartbreak and longing in every syllable. This week's Love Homework is a song that is also about being tossed around by someone that you love, but is only messing with you and your emotions. And that's True Romance by She Wants Revenge. This week's Horror Homework is a found footage flick from 2015 called Hell House LLC. It's really quite a fresh breath of air into the found footage genre and is currently streaming on Amazon Prime. I was very pleasantly surprised at just how spooky it ended up being. And of course, like every episode where the singer involved has passed away, I'll be casting the Screamin Jay Hawkins biopic. It was another really difficult role to cast, but I finally landed on Jonathan Majors, who has already proved himself as being able to play in a horror situation. And that's it. Our first October together is down in the books. Next week we're back to normal programming, so if you like what you learned and you'd like to continue learning, subscribe, hit the bell, leave a like below, and join me again next Friday. Until next time, remember, you better stop the things that you do. I ain't lying. And remember that you heard it in a love song.